Hello and welcome to MEDICUS the podcast. I'm Nicole and with me is science communicator Dr. Lakshmi Srikumar.
Hi everyone.
And we're here to talk about something extremely exciting that is happening at Duke-NUS.
Yes, today Wang Linfa, Duke-NUS very own Batman, has a new paper out in the New England Journal of Medicine in which he found that people who had SARS back in 2003 and now vaccinated against COVID actually produce neutralizing antibodies that can attack not just SARS and COVID but all kinds of sabicoviruses.
What?
Sarbecoviruses.
Sarbecoviruses. I've never heard of those. What are they?
Sabicovirus is a name for a diverse group of coronaviruses. But like you, Nicole, it was a term that I was not really familiar with. So I spoke to Batman himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wang Linfa, and I'm professor in the program for Emerging Infectious Diseases at the Duke-NUS Medical School in Singapore.
Hi, Professor Wang. Thanks for joining us. So, what are sabicoviruses and why did you choose to focus on this specific group of coronaviruses?
In virology, we give a family tree to all viruses. So coronavirus is a family, and below the family, we have the genus, so we have the alpha, beta, gamma, delta genus. And then in the beta genus, that we have the, SARS-CoV-1, SARS-CoV-2, the MERS coronavirus. And SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2, they are in the same group. That's the group is called the sarbecovirus. Basically, it's SARS beta coronavirus. And they have some commonality because they use the same molecule on our cell surface. It's called the ACE2 molecule. So they use that as a gate to enter cell and do replication and do all the nasty things that can cause severe disease and sometimes death. And we now know that this group of viruses are highly dangerous because they're very transmissible among human to human, and they can cause lethal disease. What we're worried about is that SARS-3 and SARS-4 will also come from this sarbecovirus group.
So how is it different from the current pan-COVID vaccine candidates being developed to boost our immunity to fight different variants?
Our first generation vaccine that we all receive, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, they target the protein come from the original Wuhan virus. And then very quickly we learned that we are largely protected with that vaccine, but some people can be infected by the variants, alpha, beta, gamma, delta. So we call this vaccine breakthrough infection. So the pan-COVID-19 vaccine right now is trying to have a boost shot, develop another vaccine that against, for example, the beta variant. And then if you receive that booster shot on the sort of a background of already having the first generation vaccine, then we expect you will be protected against all the variants we know. So this is called a pan-COVID-19 vaccine. We used to have alpha, then we had a beta. Now the delta variant is the most concerning. So there is a possibility we have variants X, Y, Z still to emerge. And then on top of that, I already say, in future, you could have other sabicovirus, jump to human and cause SARS-3, SARS-4.
And in this study of people who were infected with SARS and vaccinated against COVID, what did you find?
17 years ago, I was involved in SARS research. And January last year, I was in Wuhan. So I realized that this COVID-19 virus is very close to the SARS-1. So 18th of January, I flew back from Wuhan to Singapore. And the first question I asked myself and also, asked the national research team is that, is it possible for the SARS-1 survivors that they contain antibodies which can neutralize SARS-2? If that's the case, then we have a therapeutic, convalescent plasma already. So we did that study. Unfortunately, their antibodies did not cross-neutralize SARS-CoV-2. So 18 months later, this is another opportunity to ask, for SARS-CoV-1 survivors, when they receive the vaccine versus somebody like me, I call myself naive because my background is clean, right? I have not been infected by either SARS-1 or SARS-2. If we compare the antibody in our body, are they different? And to our pleasant surprise, there's a huge difference. because the SARS-1 survivors, when they are vaccinated, they get much better antibody response, not only the level, but also the breadth. So now they have antibodies that can fight against different sabicoviruses. So how do we know that? Last year, we invented this test called a surrogate virus neutralization test. Commercial name is CPAS. So that was a single test against a single virus, the Wuhan virus. Since then, we have improved the test, and we have now what we call a multiplex, means that we can do the same test, use the same human serum sample against 10 different sabicoviruses. So this was really a breakthrough in our ability, and we demonstrate that SARS-1 survivors, when they immunized with the SARS-2 vaccine, now in their body, they contain antibodies is capable of fighting every sabicovirus that included in our study. So that was a huge, significant discovery.
Oh, that's interesting. So these antibodies are a bit like a Swiss Army knife?
I think you can think of as a Swiss knife. They have all the bits and different antibodies. And then when they see a different sabicovirus, they can just mobilize that part of the antibody arsenal and then fight the viruses.
But SARS has disappeared. So how can those of us who have vaccinated or had COVID get wider protection against all kinds of sabicoviruses?
So what we want is to, first of all, is to focus on the SARS-2 vaccinated population, and then follow up by a boosting vaccine we call the third generation coronavirus vaccine, or 3G COVAX. So use the 3G COVAX, we try to mimic that process so that your body can fight not only the variants we know and the emerging variants that we don't know, and even potentially the emerging sabicovirus could be SARS-3, SARS-4 in the future.
Oh, that's great. So you see, Nicole, we should all be excited by this discovery that antibodies can be taught not just to fight SARS-CoV-2, but all kinds of coronaviruses.
Thanks, Lakshmi, for catching up with Batman. Looks like he's on a mission that will benefit us all. This was MEDICUS, the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Do visit duke-nus.edu.sg/medicus for more stories from Duke-NUS.